Okay, I got 3:37, so good afternoon, everyone. Let's call together this special meeting of the Ways and Means Committee meeting for budget review. Remember for everyone that for those who are watching, you probably already know this, but there's a copy of this agenda may be found on the website under the tab for the legislature. Also, would make sure everyone please silence their phones and electronic devices and keep your conversations to a minimum to not interfere with the recording for the ladies who need to do minutes in the future. All right, at this time, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so first up, we have the presentation by our consultants, O'Connor Davies, to discuss their findings and review of the 2025 executive recommended Orange County budget. Welcome, Nick. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm too anxious. Carrie Ann, roll call, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
O'Donnell.
Here.
Benzion.
Here.
Riskevich.
Here.
Hine.
Here.
Sierra. Cheney.
Here.
Luhan.
Present.
Benton.
Here.
2 out.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for that. Nick, welcome again.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the legislature. My name is Nicholas DeSantis, and with me today is Albert Covini and Samantha Nardo, both analysts that worked on the review of the county executive's 2025 proposed budget. You have two documents that have been provided to you. One is the spiral report, which contains detailed descriptions of all the information and analysis that we did, as well as the PowerPoint presentation, which I understand is being streamed to those viewers that have logged online to the county's website. The engagement as directed by the legislature has this year, as it has in all past years, been for our firm to evaluate and analyze the calculations presented by the county executive, not the policy issue, but the calculations, and to maintain the fiscal integrity of the county has always been the charge by the legislature in engaging us to review the current and past budget. If we turn to page 3 on the PowerPoint, page 3 is basically an overview of the county's proposed budget. In the uppermost left corner, you'll see the budget is proposed at $987.34 million compared to the adopted budget, which was $923.8 million for a $63.5 million increase. The majority of that increase was in personal services, contractual costs, as well as benefits for county employees. The property tax levy to support the budget is $122.5 million. It's the same as was in the adopted budget. And the budget also relied upon the appropriation of $9 million of fund balance from the general fund to fund the budget. Although not indicated on the slide, the budget provides for 2,489 positions, 21 positions more than the adopted budget for 24. The budget also includes a vacancy savings against those positions of almost $9 million. It includes a $2 million for a property tax overlay, which is monies to help defer the uncollected taxes by delinquent taxpayers, as well as $2 million for contingency. And most importantly, it provides $109 million for sales tax sharing with your local municipalities. If you turn to page 4 basically shows a comparison of your property tax levy in comparison to your budget and some of the surrounding municipalities. And you can see that the reliance upon property tax is the lowest compared to the surrounding counties when you look at the 2024 budget. We're going to jump over to page 8. Page 8 is one of your largest revenues that are contained within the budget, and it's the sales tax revenues. And the comparison to the 24 year-to-date budget shows that the 24 budget was adopted at $292 million. We're projecting $294 million, $2 million favorable, more in collections for sales tax in 24. When we look at the recommended budget, the recommended budget goes up by $302.8 million for 2025, reflecting a 2.5% growth rate as compared to the administration's projections for 2024. We use a growth rate of only 2%, and by using that 2% growth rate, it reflects an unfavorable variance of almost $3 million. In our discussions with the administration earlier today, we've modified our position, even though it's reflected here. We're willing to accept the 2.5% growth rate, given certain facts that have come to our attention since we've made these projections. So even though we're more conservative here, the 2.5% growth rate by the administration, we think is a doable projection. And that would result, instead of 108.4 million to be shared with municipalities, you would share with 109.4 million.
So,
So you'll share $1 million.
Mr. Cheney?
excuse me, what were the factors? Can you go into a little more detail as to the factors that caused you to?
Well,
change?
we were using the Federal Reserve growth rate of 2%. But if you look at some of the growth rates that are being projected by economic indicators, they're indicating 2.5% to 3%. So we think 2.5% growth rate that the administration used on the sales tax projection would be acceptable. We also think there might be a little bit of an offset in energy costs that may occur during 2025, but we're comfortable with 2.5% as a growth rate.
But our sales tax revenues are dependent significantly, fairly significantly on
Retail.
retail, but retail from tourists, resident people that come into the area. There are factors that could influence travel and ability to spend. Is that factored in?
Well, keep in mind that we're not privy to the details of the sales tax collection. Only the Commissioner of Finance is privy to that. We're going by the sales tax collections that the county receives monthly. And then we utilize other regional information that comes to our attention, as well as national information that is expected on a national level. So the federal government, I believe, Samantha, was 2% on the CPI. The consumer price index was a 2% growth rate, but 2.5% is, I'm comfortable with 2.5%.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. O'Donnell?
So this is just your best guess on where we're gonna be at the end of next year.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we're projecting something right now. When the administration put the budget together, they were, what, 16 months before year end, and we're 14 months before year end?
Didn't know what was gonna happen yesterday.
Right.
And our budget's a $900 million guess.
Well,
Educated.
Yeah. But
Very
it's well educated, yes. They're well educated.
Experience also.
Right. So when we look at page 9, on page 9, this is the sales tax sharing. And you'll see in that second column, the 108.4 million. By staying with the 2.5%, you're gonna be sharing $1 million more at $109.4 million, which is reflected in the county executive's budget. On page 10, you can see the relationship between your sales tax collections and your total budget as it compares to some other counties. And Orange County has always been reflected higher as sales tax in its budget, primarily because of Woodbury Commons does very well for you in providing funds. Even though these funds are dependent upon what happens in the economy, it's always been a stable source of funds for Orange, as I can remember, other than the pandemic years. Hotel tax? Samantha, would you like to talk about hotel tax?
Sure. For hotel tax, the adopted budget was 6.65 million, and we're projecting revenues to be 7.61 million, which is a $960,000 favorable variance. The year-to-date expenditures as of September were $540,000 more than the prior year, so we're coming in with a favorable variance. The recommended budget is 7.04 million. We decided to keep our projection flat at 7.61 million, which is still a $570,000 favorable variance as compared to the recommended budget.
Even though there's some new hotel rooms that
There
are
are-
projected.
Yeah, there are some new hotels projected over the course of 2025, but they might still be in the construction phase, so that's why we kept it flat with.
Right, the administration didn't include it, nor have we.
And that was mentioned to be, for people's notice, about 345
Mhm.
hotel rooms in development. That's a lot.
Interest and penalties on real property taxes. Of course, these are revenues that are derived from property taxes that are in arrears when they come in. And what we do is we utilize year-to-date collections and the amount of monies that are still outstanding in county property taxes and apply a trend to that. Would you like to speak about that, Samantha?
Sure, so for 2024, the adopted budget was 6.9 million. We're projecting 6.3 million, which is an unfavorable variance of 560,000. And like Nick said, that was just based on the trends over the last couple of years. For 2025, the recommended budget increased slightly to 7 million. And we are projecting 6.57 million, which is $430,000 unfavorable. And that's just based on the current collection rate, the average percent added to our projection, and the 2025 county tax levy is remaining flat, so.
So this is like a good news, bad news thing. The interest and penalties are reflected down. That means you're collecting your property tax. That's what that means. Interest earnings. Samantha?
So, for the interest earnings, the adopted budget was 11.95 million. We're projecting 18.37 million, which is a favorable variance of 6.42 million. This is just based on the county's money market accounts and CDs as of year to date. And we applied, an average interest, the average interest rates for the remainder of the year. The interest rates for 2024 were much higher than expected, so resulted in a favorable variance. The recommended budget for 2025 is 14.99 million. We agree with this projection, and we took into account the planned usage of fund balance and planned usage of the ARPA funds, and lowered the interest rate just a little bit. And we agree with the budget.
Yeah, unfortunately, you had enough certificates of deposit that were invested by the Commissioner of Finance, and they were overlapping into the 2025 year. So you benefited from the higher interest rates that were reflected in 2024 before the feds have reduced the interest rates.
Mr. Paduk?
Yeah, thank you. I know during the session prior to this, I asked about CDs and stuff. And we have a money market account. Have we talked to any banks, since we have so much money, about high interest savings, so we can take it anytime we want? Like some banks may offer us 6% on just,
Sure, so I have a policy where I go out to bid when the money is available I'll be coming next month to reaffirm that policy, but yes, I'm constantly going out to bid and that's how you're locking in those rates.
so, and the rate is what right now?
It varies, based on how long you're going out. And to Nick's point, right, we went out longer thinking that the rates would, if you'd asked me the same question a week ago, it's gonna be different than it is. And with what just occurred, I don't know that answer, but what we're getting is between 4.5% to 5.03%,
Okay.
based on the length of the term of the investment.
We're gonna skip over gain on sale of tax acquired property, since nothing has been included in the budget. And that item category has been affected by the judgment from the Supreme Court. So we're gonna go to the deferred taxes overlay. Deferred taxes overlay is the amount of money that you place in the budget to take into account delinquent taxpayers in paying the county its resources that it needs for its operating budget. You've included $2 million in the adopted budget for '24, and the recommended budget maintains the same amount of money, and we concur with that amount.
And this money is mainly used because we make all the towns whole in the county. So
Correct.
we're the ones that take the loss
Mm-hmm.
rather than the individual towns, just so that everybody on the internet knows.
Except for the cities.
Except for the 3 cities, correct. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
And then we have the county clerk fees, which also sync up to page 6 of the spiral bound analysis. And of course, as you all recall, the DMV fees and the mortgage reporting are the largest amounts of money that are provided for county clerk fees. For 2025, mathematically, we came up with 190,000 unfavorable variance on $9 million. And as I said, mathematically, we came up with that amount of money. I think the legislature could sort of ignore that small amount of variance. The tobacco settlement, which is written up on page 8. Samantha, you remember the tobacco settlement?
Yeah, so for the tobacco settlement, the county gets their payments in 2024, April of 2024. So the actual was about 3.6 million, which is an unfavorable variance of 400,000. And the county has been seeing a decrease of payments received, or the state has been seeing a decrease in the payments. So of about 2.7 over the past 2 years. So we project 3.5 million for 2025, which is 90,000 less than the recommended budget.
Payments in lieu of taxes, page 18 of the PowerPoint. We're concurring with the recommendation of $2 million. There was one property in 2024 that hasn't paid, and the administration did not include that property in its forecast for 2025. And we agree with them on that item. Page 19 is the jail revenues. The largest amounts of money from the jail revenues come from housing, ICE detainees, ICE's immigration, and the U.S. Marshal, and some lesser rates for other adjacent counties. Right now, the prisoner census is averaging around 350. U.S. Marshal, I don't think occupied much capacity during the 24 year. And the administration has massaged the budget a little bit here from the projection from 24 to 25 up to 5.5 million. We came up with a $210,000 unfavorable variance using some trends based upon capacity. Now, that may change given certain circumstances that may be happening on the federal level with ICE detainees and Marshal detainees. That could conceivably change. So I would stay with the recommended amount of 5.5. Games of chance, page 20. Casino.
Yes, so for 2024, the adopted budget was 2.4 million. We are only projecting 2.05 million. This is a $350,000 unfavorable variance. The collections through September were down about 5%. So I think the county is just seeing, just an overall decrease over the last couple of years. So that being said, we agreed with the recommended budget of $2 million. We thought that was reasonable.
Page 21 is we just put this in here. It doesn't directly impact the county's budget, other than if you had to provide for capital projects. But these are some of the uses of the ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan money. And again, we remind you that all these monies have to be encumbered by the end of '24, and the monies must be dispersed at the end of '26. Otherwise, you return the money back to the federal government, which you don't want to do. Page 23, we're going into the expense side of the budget. And you can see that the major item for '25 is the recommended budget is $203.37 million for personnel costs, which includes vacancies.
Notice a typo. It says 206, but it's actually 203.
Good catch.
I didn't catch it.
And we concur with the overall recommended budget. And if we turn to the page 24, we'll see on page 4 that the recommended budget includes 349 vacancies as part of the 2,489 positions that are funded. These vacancies were available to us at the time we did our analysis. May have changed somewhat. But most important, as you can see, the total value of those vacancies are $20,498,000, of which the administration has deducted costs for those vacancies at $8.8 million. So the net result of those vacancies is $11.6 million. Plus there's additional savings in the fringe benefit area, probably about another $3 million that have been reflected. In the overtime area on page 25, Albert? Samantha?
Yeah, so the overtime budget for 2024 was 8.79 million. We're projecting 11.9 million, which is a total variance of 3.11 million. And this is due mostly to the vacant positions, and the overtime they had to cover the cost of the vacant position. So there were 23 vacant positions in the jail, and that exceeded the budget by about 1.36 million. And for DSS, that was another large variance. There were 64 vacant positions, and that exceeded the budget by about 800,000. And we concur with 2025.
And you can see on page 26, the comparison of positions to the overall budget for a few of the counties. But just keep in mind, it doesn't necessarily reflect the type of services that you're providing in each of those counties as well. Page 27 indicates the expiration date of all your labor contracts. So all the contracts are in place and have been reflected in the proposed budget. Employee benefits, retirement, the retirement actuarial rates have actually increased surprisingly, since the stock market did very well in March of this year. Usually that's used as the baseline. Nevertheless, the administration has projected the retirement costs based upon the availability of information, but also that 34 million also includes a net vacancy factor of $960,000. So if you remember, we spoke about the vacant positions, we spoke about the vacancy factor of $8 million. This is another $1 million on top of that, that has not been budgeted because of the vacancy. Employee benefits, the health benefits.
Yeah, so for 24, we are projecting a total variance of 9.15 million, and this is a result of the budget costs not incurred from the unfilled positions. And for 2025, we are projecting that the night shift rates will increase by about 10%. So our projection is 94.46 million, which is about 600,000 less than the recommended budget.
And included in that 95.06 million is a vacancy savings of 2.68 million. And money's not budgeted for the vacant positions. And then we have social security benefits on page 30. The salary base in 2024 is 168,600. That's rising to 174,900 in 2025. And also included in that 15.87 million in the recommended budget is a vacancy factor of $450,000. What's not reflected here is workers' compensation. The workers' compensation had sufficient fund balance in its fund to generate interest earnings that would mitigate any outflow of funds. So there's no contribution from the operating funds into the workers' comp fund. So I believe we might have written that up in our analysis in the spiral book, but it's not there in the PowerPoint. Public health, the health department, if we talk about the health department, what's the net result of the findings in the health department?
The net findings, so in the spiral book, at page 25, we'll have the net impact. So in 2024, it will have a net impact of 3.3 million. And in 2025, we'll have a net impact of 751,000.
And just to remind them, everybody, the reimbursement rates from the state on the programs in the health department. Like the early intervention program, handicap reimbursement.
Yes, so
State reimbursement.
yes, they're all state reimbursements. So the EI program is reimbursed at 39%. And then the preschool programs are reimbursed by the state at 59.5%.
Page 35 of the PowerPoint, the jail. The savings here is on the medical services contract. The existing contract provides for a CPI increase of 2.5%. Utilizing that same vendor and renewing, I guess, that contract with a 2.5% increase would result in $2 million less necessary funds to be budgeted for medical costs than was reflected in the budget. I understand the administration has gone out for RFP. We're showing the lesser of the expense that we know of here in the PowerPoint presentation. Overall in the jail, obviously you remember that the capacity in the jail is 778 prisoners. The average population in 2024 was about 336 prisoners, and the budget still provides for 311 uniformed officers in the jail. On page 36, the debt service. The recommended budget provides for all required debt service principal and interest on existing bonds and debt of $33.9 million, which is in the left column under the 2025 recommended budget. The important thing for legislators to be aware of is in balancing the debt service, the administration is proposing using $4.3 million of prior accumulated surplus. That's about half of the surplus that was available at the end of 23, which means that when you go into the 26 budget, you probably use the balance of the money. And when you come upon the 27 budget, you're going to have to make up the difference from other sources or reduce the amount of debt outstanding, which they may have a trend line that actually does that.
And Nick, what is the time delay from when you bond something, build something before you have to start to pay it back?
It's 12 months,
12 months, right?
right?
1 year?
Yeah, 12 months.
18 months.
18 months?
18 months on,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you have to go to bonding in
Right.
18 months. And we reimburse.
Thank you. Just wanted to say it.
Sanitary landfill, currently, its projected tipping fees would be 130.25 per ton. And the hauling fees to take away, the rubbish is $84.79 a ton. We increased the hauling fees by a small amount of money, increasing it to 86.79 cents a ton, which results in that unfavorable variance of $350,000 when you compare the revenue and the expenses for the sanitary landfill. Also important in sanitary landfill, it's projected that the fund balance in that fund would be about $1.2 million at the end of '24, but you're gonna utilize 800,000 of that to balance the '25 budget, which again presents a little bit of a challenge going into the '26 year. The community college tuition, page 38 and 39, you can see some of the breakout of weighted out. Right now, it's recommended at $7 million. That could be a small decrease based upon our analysis, maybe 350,000 less, based upon our analysis, utilizing, I guess, the projection from the current year, the 2024 year. But you can see on page 39 where the county dollars go and to which colleges that reimbursement goes. Page 40 is the contingency amount. Recommended budget includes $2 million of contingency. We agree with that. In '24, it appears that you're going to use some of that contingency money to keep the budget, not that the budget needs to be in balance for '24. You'll see later that we're projecting a pretty large budget surplus, but nevertheless, some of that contingency money has been earmarked in '24 for some other purposes. Department of Social Service, page 41, you could see, if you look all the way to the right and squint, you'll see that the DSS total expenses are 239.36 million. If you take away the IGT payment, which is the intergovernmental transfer money for Valley View, the budget is 235.62 million. The net result of all our findings, I believe appear on page 43. Alvin,
Yes, that's correct.
and what is that?
So it's gonna be an increase in the county local share by 1.65.
So is there anything important that you want to point out about the SS?
So two things I want to point out for '25 is the daycare services. So a few years ago, the state increased the income threshold to 300%. And right now, enrollment for daycare services is up by like approximately 20%. So we do want to point that out. And also for safety net, that's currently approximately about 15%. So those two programs are up significantly from prior years. So we're looking at those. Good thing with daycare is it's mainly federal reimbursement. So you have a small local share of about 80,000. And your safety net, that's going to be about a 1 million unfavorable variance for that program for the '25 year.
If you look at page 53, there's just a simple chart that shows what the net cost of DSS is in comparison to your overall budget and how it compares with some neighboring communities. One of the things, DSS has always returned a significant amount of money at year end. So we should keep that in mind as well. We turn to page 54 and we come upon Valley View. And we look at the recommended budget for 2025 in Valley View, and we see that the county executive has included $59.7 million for Valley View in the operating budget. But to keep that budget balanced, that expense budget, Valley View is drawing down upon some of its cash position of $13.1 million. If we look on page 55, what we've done is we've converted Valley View's financial equity, because Valley View is on a full accrual basis, and we've added back some of the expenses that you would add back for a governmental fund, bringing its position from a negative 176 to positive 43 at the end of 2023. If we subtract the amount of money that you're going to use from Valley View, from 2024, almost 11 million, and what's proposed for 25, 13 million. You'll be subtracting 24 million from that, and you'll have 19 million available from Valley View for future years. We'll see later that the county executive and the legislature, in concluding your 2023 audit, set aside $20 million for Valley View in its general fund, and we'll show you that later. If we turn to page 57, these are a summary of our findings. What I indicated to you earlier, if you disregard that 2,000,009 reduction on sales tax, which is at the top of the column, by going with the 2.5% that the administration has put forth in its projection. I think a very important feature is on page 61. Page 61 is basically taking the financial status of the county general fund at the end of 23 and bringing it forward, utilizing what we projected through the end of 24. So we can see that the total fund balance started at $282 million. And when we subtract a variety of areas, and we have definitions in here for all these areas, non-spendable, restricted, committed, and encumbrances, as well as the assigned, you had 173 million unaccounted for at the end of 24. And to that, when we turn to page 62, we see that we're projecting a budget surplus in the middle of the page for 2024 of 31,800,000. When you combine that with what we identified with the 173, that gives you a total amount of monies, $205.2 million that is not accounted for. And if you compare that at the bottom of the page, if you follow the arrow, to all your operating funds for 2024, with the exception of Valley View, you'll see that the relationship of that fund balance, which has not been committed to the operating fund, is 23.68%. Utilizing that same concept on pages 63 and 64, when you get to the bottom of page 64, we'll see that that same concept results in $203.8 million unencumbered as compared to the operating budgets for 2025, except Valley View, and it drops down to 21.98. So I would say that the financial condition of the county is in very, very good financial condition. On page 65, if you recall, I mentioned to you about Valley View. If you go to the left-hand column in that small print and find Valley View, and look across, you'll see $20 million has been set aside in the general fund for future years to help subsidize Valley View, or until such time as you can get Valley View, the utilization rate up so that it becomes self-sufficient.
And here's where I make my annual comment. If we had sold the facility, it wouldn't be there. We wouldn't have any of this coming up. Mr. Rosenberg would.
So with that said, I would say that our presentation is concluded. The county's in good financial condition. The operating budget has been proposed. We think takes into consideration all the municipal services that have been the past, meaning 2024 policy of the county. I know there was some concern on the amount of positions that might have been vacant. The administration has indicated that they're looking to fill those positions, or trying to fill most of those positions. But just keep in mind that about $15 million worth of offset savings has been already taken against those positions. So if you look at that amount of money, even though the positions are total, I think the operating budget without DSS and Valley View was about 245 positions. That amount of that savings would reduce that by about 100 positions, what's been taken as a vacancy savings. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Yes, there are
Entertain any
questions.
questions.
I know we allow people to ask questions along the way, so any questions now? All right, Great, thank you, Nick.
Good, thank you.
Now, again, number 2 here is review and vote on amendments. That's always confusing because we accept your report, but we're not going to change any line items to match yours. It's, thank you very
Well, we
much.
made that recommendation.
Yeah.
Even though you see some of the calculations we make, I think it's to give you comfort knowing that we looked at those items.
Mhm, absolutely.
And I don't think they're significant enough to make a change, particularly, I would stay with the 2.5% on the sales tax.
So we'll go on to review proposed changes by statutory committees and legislators.
We leave that.
Chairman Benelli?
If I might. I'm gonna start really quick.
Sure.
And thank you, Deb, for preparing. Do you want to take one of these and pass it around? As you recall, throughout the budget process, there were 2 outstanding issues that occurred. The latest one and the last one had to do with the sheriff's office.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And as soon as everybody gets a copy, I'm going to need a motion and a second for discussion, please. Mr. Lujan, I'll second.
Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
As always, it's great to see you, Nick. Thank you. So what is being passed out pertains to 2 different departments. I'm going to speak to the sheriff's one first, because this is kind of the way it was kick-started. After the public safety meeting, the sheriff requested a meeting with myself and the county executive. We sat down, we met with him, and we negotiated. If you recall, the ask was for 3 sergeants, 3 civilians, and 1 captain of special operations. Myself and Majority Leader, just happenstance, and Harry Ford had the opportunity to meet the day before we met, and we had discussed this. So then with the sheriff, myself and the county executive and his staff, we had a good conversation, and it was negotiated to appropriate monies for 2 sergeants at the end of the day. 6 months. So what you have before you is the numbers that will make that work. While I was with the county executive, the mental health issues, this, if you recall, was a late entry that came to us at the meeting itself, which was fine. We reviewed it in concept. There were a few different requests, some of which, and this is what was discussed with Deb, myself, and the county executive. And we felt that the first one, which was to defund 2 senior, not defund 1 senior caseworker, and then also add two staff social workers. The other things that were requested, we would handle going as we enter into 25. So what you have before you are the adjustments as it resulted from outstanding issues that were done during the budget process. And Deb, if you want to explain it further.
So just on the sheriff's portion, they were only for 6 months. So there were 2 sergeants for 6
Oh,
months.
yes, I did forget that. Yes, it was only for 6 months. And if the chart itself explains, these would be creating new positions. So the monies were put in the various different line items there instead of a particular personal services line item.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, just on that 6 months. So what we'd be approving is that they would be hired July 1st.
Correct. But it's going to take them
Right.
that much time to get there.
Okay.
So
Mr. Hines?
instead of funding for a full year and we don't use the
Exactly.
money,
It's gonna take them.
Correct.
So we're gonna approve today, if it goes through,
yes,
money effective July 1st.
correct.
Mr. Hines, you chair this committee. Any comments?
Yeah, not about the sergeants, but it was we didn't vote at public safety, but we did poll the committee, and the committee was 100% in favor of that tactical captain for the SOG unit. Currently, it's a 20-year deputy that is the commander of that unit, And the sheriff explained to us that that person not having rank seems awkward at the scene because you have a deputy telling chiefs and, state police people what to do. So we wanted to do that, and I think we thought that cost was about 70,000. So I don't know if the sheriff negotiated that away with you, but I made a commitment to the Public Safety Committee that we would bring that issue here because that was their feeling that we would do that.
And yes, I totally concur with you. At our meeting, the county executive was not in favor of moving on that. We asked them what their priorities were, and the sergeants was their first priority. And there really was no further discussion on the other position. There was some discussion on the civilians, but then after we had the opportunity with Deb to look at the numbers, and I wasn't in the room at the time, but evidently the county executive got on the phone with the sheriff and said, we'll do the two. So it wasn't advocated for. He had the opportunity, he had wanted to, and here again, this is what came out of that particular meeting that he required, that he asked for.
Okay,
But I understand your position because you were in an awkward position that day and you were trying to do everything you possibly could.
okay. Any other questions on these proposals, these two? All in favor? Aye.
Somebody has to make.
I'll make a
the
motion.
I can't do it, I'm just.
No,
presenting.
we already had the motions for discussion, so right, motion
Oh.
approval. Yeah, Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. Luban. Okay. Again, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you.
For your consideration.
Oh.
everybody.
You're welcome. Now, these two that were made at committee, do we need to approve these today?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So again, now we have a handout for the legislative changes that were made in the committee meetings to the recommended budget. Motion in a second, please. Mr. Lujan, second O'Donnell. And again, one was from the Department of Planning and one was for Cornell Cooperative. Planning was an adjustment for minus 25,000 and the real property from Cornell Ag and Livestock was 57,000. Discussion, questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now, there were some other proposals that were proposed by Mr. Paduk. Did any of these make it out of the committee process?
The one you just approved, one vote did. Planning.
Okay,
I just had some more information that I'd just like to have for the committee to consider. And it's all in contractual, the same thing that we just did in contractual austerity. I have a sheet that shows what happened in 23 and in 24 isn't finalized. Just want to give you on these proposals that I gave to you guys. I'll just go down a few of them. Like the tourism one, that's the first one. Add line 5, that's the austerity contractual adjustment. Let me get one. In 2023, now these are final numbers, because we don't have the 24th final numbers yet. Their adopted budget is $1,979,077. The actual totals that they spent were $1,899,673.40. So they returned $79,403 in contractual expenses. That's the first one. That's why I asked to add in 57990 so that they can decide how not to spend $50,000 of it, because they already had what I just showed you, $79,000 extra in the 2023 budget.
okay, but this was, again, this was proposed at the proper committee, but not approved?
No.
This is an additional,
Some of these, I just reviewed the budget again before this committee meeting, and that's where this takes place, right? This is where any adjustments are gonna take place here.
or on the floor at the time of that
But I
meeting.
figured it's, best to go here.
Ms. Vanelli?
Mrs. O'Donnell.
I started, whoa.
That escalated really
Going back to
quick.
my
That-
Irish roots.
It wasn't me, Marvin.
It wasn't me either, Mark.
Loose lips.
Okay, so I
I-
took a look at the submission and I asked for some help from the staff. So real quick, to go down, if you're looking at the first sheet, parks, this was a motion, there was a motion made by this and it failed. If you go down a little further, county roads, motion failed. The landfill one, the motion was withdrawn. The second page, the planning one, was motion and approved. Motion seconded and approved.
25,000.
25,000. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that was a clarification. 25,000, and this sheet has 50,000. So I don't know if that's in addition to the 25 or to make it 75 or to make it 50.
I think it's done.
Okay, and then sewer, there's no county taxation on this, so I don't even know.
Yeah, these are all user fees for
Yes, so, but
residents.
But as far as to answer your question of what was presented before committee, those are the ones that.
Okay. So I guess we'll take a few minutes to consider the ones, Mr. Fagion, you had your comment?
Madam Chair, handle that, thank you.
All right.
Lee, if I could, I could give you the numbers that they returned. I mean, the numbers that I'm talking about here, reduced taxation about $890,000 to all these departments.
Mhm.
It reduces taxation. There's no other really issue here other than reduce taxations and let the departments do their thing to not spend that much of their money. And I'll just give you a few of the other ones. Parks,
Chairman, if I may,
What's that? Mr. Fagion?
would we need a motion and a second to discuss any and all of these?
Yeah, we probably should. Mr. Lujan, I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
right, so we did tourism, they returned 79,000. Parks returned 195,987. Special rec returned 91,635. Talked about planning. Law returned 107,765. The landfill returned. Landfill's one of those that's not.
Landfill has user fees also.
User fee, right. So buildings, we'll go to the DPW buildings. They returned $2,010,399. County roads returned $1,555,000. So I could go on and on here with the rest of the proposal. What you're seeing here is these are minimal amounts for the contractual costs at these departments. And by doing this, we could actually lower taxes and even a little more. You heard Nick just talk about how much money we have in the bank. I mean, this is just doing our job a little better. And I think every year, I mean, we could do a little better if we really scrutinize, which I try to do every year. You know, I'm not really good at this, but I've done it enough times where I can see that, you know, there's a lot of leeway here where we can do a little bit better job for the taxpayers. So that's why I would ask that you consider and,
Okay.
you know, through the.
Well, you definitely put a lot of effort into this every year. I appreciate that. So again, it would be up to this committee for a motion in a second to discuss, consider these, and then a roll call vote.
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure.
You know, a few years ago, Nick and his team, I asked for a 5-year cumulative paper, which they gave us. You know, we get 23 and actuals here, that's all we get. And it was about average the same year for how much is getting returned. 16 million. Deb told us it was 30 million this year, but I know there's other grant monies in there, right, and some other things, but there's a lot of money that we could, and we're lowering it maybe 1 million. That just shows that we're really doing our job a little bit better. It's how I look at it anyway, so just wanted to make that.
Well, I usually don't like to overstep what the actual committee process.
I just have a question
Go
for finance.
Of course.
So if all of this got approved, the 890,000 reduction in tax, where does that show up in the final line? Is that reduction in property tax at the
Yeah.
end?
Could be, yeah.
Right, it's my only question, because I'm gonna be asking for a reduction of property tax, so you may get it anyway. You might not get it right now, but don't get too upset.
All right. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Mr. Lujan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, again, this is kind of part of our responsibility to try to see what we can do and how we can reduce money. I want to thank my leader for taking the time. Devin, can you perhaps maybe let us know of, like, is there some of these things that we really, if we were to, would it impact that particular location or particular department more, less? Just to kind of get an idea. I'd like to be able to support this, but I also want to make sure that we're accounting for, how it's going to impact.
Well, and again, some of it, when you have an expense, some of it has revenue associated with, which would be state and federal. So that's like for DSS, that's the biggest one, DSS is the biggest one that has, it's $15 million. All right, so basically, if you expense that, you're gonna get revenue back from it. So it's 55, it's like 75%, I think, that they get back.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the biggest one, the $15 million one.
Okay. Mr. Cheney?
Question, so assigned counsel, does that have property tax?
Assigned counsel.
Right.
No,
Right.
no, there's a portion of it for Damien's salary,
Right.
but that's a lot.
But so that would be changing assigned counsel by reducing that $1,000. Have an impact, we
Correct.
wouldn't wanna.
And that also includes legal aid also, so you can't really adjust that going down. It's kind of like that floor thing also.
And as was mentioned before, sewer is user fees, so that would not have any impact on the taxation.
Okay. Mr. Cheney?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And again, my comment is that in physical services, there were many proposals that were made. Half of them actually didn't make sense with actually the dollar values and which line you're going to pull it from and whether it was actually even possible to do. So that's why I feel uncomfortable usually with overruling the committee process at this point, not on the floor when I presume Mr. O'Donnell is going to have his proposal ready for us with specifics. Mr. O'Donnell.
I'm gonna do that now at the meeting after we finish with Michael here. But yeah, I agree with you, we gotta reduce taxes for the public, but I think the public will understand it a lot better, reducing the property tax. I understand we got a flat rate this year, and I think last year at this meeting is when we reduced it 2 or 3%, majority leader. What do you do?
Was it 2 million?
2 million.
And I would have done it at our meeting, but we didn't have the information for the points, so
Right, and I did give you that.
I didn't see.
I did it. The 1 million, 2 million, and 3 million?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I did send it to you.
Yeah, I think,
So we reduced it $3 million, what,
I think that was this, right?
Yes.
was that my box downstairs?
Okay, so let's finish this part first. Any more discussion? Mr. Cheney?
So the motion that's on the floor in front of us is for each of these line items as a grouping or?
That's a grouping.
As a grouping.
I would be also more amenable to support it, removing the assigned counsel and the sewer if that's something.
So.
Well, yes,
I
we're
guess I'll
going
make-
to remove,
I'd make them, do I need to make a motion to amend?
Yeah,
Because this is.
no,
the
we're removing
proposal
everything that Mrs. Benelli said.
Yeah.
We're removing the
from-
sewer.
the assigned
The ones that
counsel.
came before committee.
Yeah, we're removing the ones that came before committee previously.
Which were those?
I marked them down. Parks that failed,
First page, 710 parts.
Right.
yep. County road,
County
Failed.
Road, 170.
the landfill that was withdrawn, user fees.
That was entertained but withdrawn.
Now, it looks like we need to remove the assigned counsel that was mentioned
Yeah.
by Mr. Cheney.
And then sewer on
Okay.
the third.
And also, planning shows a -50, it's already been reduced by
To-
25
to
by
25.
previous motions.
Right, so that would
are
be
we
removed
dealing
as
with
well.
that, removing it, or
Yes.
just changing it to 25?
No, that we're removing because it was already approved at 25. Mr.
At public safety, the sheriff line was discussed and he said we couldn't do it less money because they were looking for more. So we didn't approve that sheriff line of a reduction. I don't remember if the numbers are the same, but we said we did not want to touch the sheriff's budget because we already didn't have enough money.
Okay, so we'll remove on that second page, number 3110, the sheriff.
30.
Okay, my page says 3110. In the column,
Oh, here.
3110,
My apologies,
page 20.
it's further down.
No problem, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, so do we know, again, what the proposal is? These line items cumulative?
Mr. Cheney, you're up making the motion to make the amendment. I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
may I just recommend that maybe as opposed to making a motion to amend this, just to make a motion on the changes that you want to make based on this. So you could make the motion and itemize it specifically in the motion.
Okay, so make a motion and identify the ones we are
Correct.
already on?
Yeah,
Okay, so then we'll need a motion to vote on
So moved.
6410 tourism. Mr. Lujan and Mr. Cheney. 7180 special recreation facilities.
Yep.
1620 buildings.
Yes.
180 road fund machinery.
Yes.
Uh,
Did we say we're doing employment?
There's no,
That was the one that we were.
Yeah.
we didn't mention employee training, but isn't that, well,
That's federal.
that's no taxation.
That's federal.
Okay.
Next. So that's removed as well. All right, so then next would be 1420 law. And then 3010 public safety. And E911 reserve 3020 E911. Remove the sheriff. What's the jail number? I can't read that. 3150. Jail. And that's it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hines.
So what money are we taking out of E911? Because we have dispatcher issues right now. We're mandating people using more money. I don't know what money we're taking away there. It just says austerity. What is that about? Every time we're short a dispatcher, we pay more in overtime.
I'm just saying that the department gets to decide how not to spend that. It isn't particular. We're not micromanaging, right?
That's the same problem we had
Yeah,
at.
I don't think it's workable.
That's the same problem we had at physical
Let's-
services.
We have a huge problem there with dispatchers, and we can't get enough, and then we're paying them overtime. If we mandate them, they get double, and,
Let's remove.
I think that's a public safety issue.
Okay, so we're moving to 20. But again, this is an example of what happened at physical services, where we had these proposals that really didn't make sense to pull the money and move it from this line to that line and such.
And while we're talking public safety, I don't understand the jail, back to minus 400. What does that mean to all of us at this table?
It was 300,000 minus 300,000 in 204 for this year.
2024?
2024 was minus $300,000 that the department has to decide how not to spend. I moved it back to 150. I gave them back half of it. And apparently they can do it, right? I mean,
Oh, the jail is.
Yeah.
I just don't know what is the austerity there now?
What was proposed in 2025?
Yeah,
I didn't have any of this.
I know,
so
but that's why I'm so clear. I just want to hear more about it.
Page
So forgive
225.
me. if
Page
I'm not-
225, it's on.
Because with the jail, same deal. The jail is like 28 years old. We're looking at a lot of retirements. We're hiring people like crazy, but can't sit in those positions until
But
they're
that's
trained.
personnel, Kev. This is contractual. It's nothing to do with personnel.
So
Nothing to do with
400,000?
personnel. Nothing to do with it.
I already have austerity contractual in the 2025 budget for contractual as 350,000.
So it'd only be at $50,000.
Right. put it back to what it was this year.
What were you saying?
They're already
They're
getting
already-
350,000 hit to make it another, I mean, some departments don't have any. This is one that's already at 350. That to me
Yeah.
seems a bit aggressive.
Yeah,
So again, this is simply, in my opinion, moving money to move money. Right, you know,
What
so
do you
I,
mean by that?
you're just moving money to move money and come up with a number at the end to say we did something.
No, that's not true. We were told not to micromanage the department. This gives the department heads the ability to reduce their taxation through that, which a lot of departments are really good at. As a matter of fact, some departments increase their contractual because they recognize that there's overestimated expenses in their budget.
But
That's what this does.
again,
This tries to
it was
eliminate
all discussed in the
overestimated
committee
expenses.
process and already not done. That's just my point, just my point. Mr. Cheney.
Yes. Public health. Let me move forward. What? We're looking at this. Agency, the contractual austerity proposed in the 2025. Sorry.
They went $100,000. And this year, they had $150,000 in contractual austerity. I put it to minus 100 because they went to zero. So I don't have.
Oh,
the
it's
page.
line 5791. 410 maybe?
No, that's not. the
Four
page.
ten is the,
Is that?
the
actual is 150. That's my fault.
4010,
no, it's not. It was taken out, so I don't have anything in there.
So there's nothing, so the suggestion is
Put it back.
to put it to 100.
keeping that one in?
I mean, my only question was what the real number was that we were changing it to.
Okay, and is that 4010 or 410?
It's 4010.
4010. Because I'm going to review these numbers before we vote again.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell,
That's what I want to know, what's the exact number and what effect it's gonna have on the tax rate.
So I don't know which numbers we're all going with. I have to be quite honest
legislature
with
change,
you.
did you say we're still moving on that one?
So tourism 50,
Yeah.
special breakfast.
yeah, but we got to do this slowly.
All right, so tourism,
50.
50.
Yeah,
You want to do that? Like, you wanna-
Sure.
You.
I know, but I didn't do it all.
okay,
My eyes
so
are not so great.
that's okay.
Oh, thanks.
So when you get that, we'll start at the top.
Okay, that would be great.
All right,
Okay.
so we're talking
Don't tell anybody my notes there.
66,
Okay, that's the first thing, okay.
so we got 6410, 50,000. You got 7180 special rec facilities, 25,000. You got building 1620, 50,000. Wait a minute, 50,000 back to 150, so that's 100.
No,
What is it now? It says 50,000 back to 150. That's a difference of 100, not 50. Mike?
It says increase line 57990, add minus 50, which would bring it back to 150, that it was.
Oh, okay, so it is a
So it's-
50.
Let's
so
spin
it's
out
fif-
100.
So it's 50,000.
It is 50.
50, yes.
Great. All
Are
right,
you going with
next,
special rec facilities?
Yes.
yes, special, that was the second one I did. That's 25.
That was parks, and then there's the.
Oh, you skipped it.
We skipped, we
did not
no,
do
we
parks.
skipped the ones that we, I'm only saying the ones that were proposed.
Okay,
Yes.
So 6410, 7180, and now we were just on 1620
okay.
Mm-hmm,
at 50,
mm-hmm,
okay? County road failed.
mm-hmm.
Then we have 180, road fund machinery, 25,000.
25. Skip landfill.
We skipped the landfill. We also, equipment and training, Next, we also skipped the sign council.
We did law.
So next was law, 1420, in the amount of 25,000. All right, planning was already previously approved, so we don't do that one again. We then have public safety, 3010. Again, this 25 or 50, Mike?
It was
It's-
50 last year, add 25 back to it to bring it to 50 this year. or next
Okay,
year.
so that's 25.
Yes.
Okay, then we scrap, I'm sorry?
We didn't have anything in contractual in 24. And we have 25,000 in this year.
He's
So
asking.
you want-
So he's asking to make it
25
50.
to bring it back to 50.
He's asking for 25 to make it to 50. The rest of that page was removed.
We removed, yeah.
Then sewer was removed on page 3. The public health is actually number 4010. And this is in the amount of 100, Mike,
Yeah,
to increase it back to 150, so that's 100 for 4010. And budget, does that apply, Deb?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, just want to make sure. So what's that total?
All right, let me add it all.
Without budget or with budget?
Without?
Without budget?
300.
300.
300?
There you go, a little bit more amenable.
Yeah, well, okay, tourism is not county taxation, actually, it's hotel tax.
Yeah.
Now, they said I could increase the hotel tax, I don't think I can do that, but I don't know how you wanna do that. So if you wanna,
you're better than me. I guess.
okay, so we'll go,
So if we're saying, okay, that's gonna make us have to get or approve increasing the hotel tax by 50,000, that would have been recommended by O'Connor Davies. So maybe we should take that one out
right,
and make it 250. Mr. Lujan agrees.
Yes.
All right. Any more discussions or questions? All right, Carrie Ann, roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, is there a motion
Yes,
Yeah,
for
you
these
already did.
changes?
but,
That
we'll
was the
Oh.
motion for discussion for it. I just want to make sure that there's a motion for these.
Lujan and Chain.
so it's $250,000 that we're gonna reduce county tax.
that's correct.
Percentage is unequal.
1/4 of the 1 million on the front page of that.
One, let me think.
We get a chance to do more in a sec.
What does it do to the tax?
Do much
Right.
everything now.
It's very minimal.
And it changes the tax rate by a couple cents too, probably?
It's $250,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of
So,
900.
and basically, I did give you the, I gave $1 million,
This
decrease.
is not.
Okay, so yeah, I can get that too.
You can wait a second till we vote on
Yeah,
that.
let's do this and we'll get.
All right,
Aye.
Carrie Ann, roll call?
O'Donnell,
Aye.
Fagion,
No.
Pine,
Yes.
Luhan,
Aye.
Cheney,
Yes.
Miskevich,
No.
Benton.
No.
4-3, motion carried.
Well, how
Motion
many people on the
fails.
committee?
Motion fails. You need
Nine.
5.
We need 5. All right. Mr. O'Donnell?
You got that, Deb? Yeah?
Thank you for all the extra work.
All right, so again, last year, and I don't know whether it was a flat number, 2 million or a million equals 1 point. I'll get clarification on that, but
I believe it was 2 million.
All right, motion in the discussion, Mr. O'Donnell, you want to make that?
yeah, I'll make a motion.
O'Donnell and
to
Lujan?
discuss The
Yep.
tax rate.
Mhm.
For a reduction. So, last year we reduced it 2 million, he said, I thought it was 2 points, but I could be wrong on that, or a point could be equal to me.
It was 2 million.
Then we reduced it, but Did that equal 1 point?
I don't know what the number is.
I think it was close. Doesn't matter either way, right? So, getting back to, unassigned fund balance. So in 23, we had, a little over 173 million. I don't know what percentage that was, but then last year, or this year, 24, we were at, 205 million, a little over that, which was 23.68 of the budget, so more than double or what we approved, 10% rate. And in this current budget of 25, what they're recommending is, the budget's 927 million in change, and our unassigned, fund balance is page 64.
Right, the total budget though is not, that's what that value is, when they put that in there.
You're going by what numbers they gave me.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't tell me they didn't add this or didn't add
Yeah,
this.
that was with that value.
All right, but when we're going for the percentage, we're going over the total budget and
Yes.
the unassigned fund balance, which is gonna be in the 25 budget, I think 21.98%, all right? And I don't know, 6-7 months ago, we voted for the 10% number. You guys are recommending 15%, which we didn't agree. That's what you put in. We changed it to 10. So 10% is, of our budget would have been 92 million. We have 203 million in change. So we have basically 111 extra million dollars over our recommended 10%. But even if we went by their recommended 15%, we'd still be over extra 64 million. So if I make a recommendation to reduce the taxes by 3 million, what is that gonna do? Which 3 million is of our
Okay, so
extra money.
it's 122, so if we decrease it by, 3 million, it would be 119. That, the tax rate would be 2.1225.
We lowered by 2.1.
Yeah, I think it was, what was it right now?
So we be lowering the county tax rate for the taxpayers by 2.1%. Is that correct? Close enough?
What is it? Okay, so it was, at 1.22, it was 2.176 tax rate. And if you go to 119, it's 2.12 as the tax rate, so it's about a 5 to 6% reduction in the tax rate.
In the tax rate. So I'll change it to 1.5 million to cut that in half. So we got a change in tax rate to 2.5, close enough.
So how much do you want us to reduce it?
1.5 million.
Okay, all right.
Half of that, that's be about,
I'll make a motion to reduce it 1.5 million dollars, which according to finance is about
Okay.
2.5%.
So then we will put surplus in for it.
Yes.
Yes.
Second.
okay.
I told you I didn't.
I know,
You
you have
guys
a
are like
different
twins.
All right, we're pretty clear on the
I
proposal?
second it, Mr. Chairman.
Deb? Okay, Mr. Cheney?
Yeah. How does this affect tax cap? In other words, by reducing, does it put us in a position where, you know,
So,
it would reduce and we wouldn't then be able to, it wouldn't increase in the logical
no,
sense.
it would never, I mean, we've left money on the table in the tax cap for many years.
Not even close.
But, so, no, we would, we would just have, we wouldn't be able to increase all of the surplus, like from the tax cap, you know how it is, it's, you know, you get it
Very
there.
complicated.
Yeah,
That's not what I
it is very complicated. So you can carry over some of it, but at that point, we will not be able to carry over all of it. It would be probably 1.5% of the carryover. So that would be.
So this technically, like you said, if I've got my numbers written down right, would give us a rate literally right between the 2.176 and 2.122. Correct?
Yes.
Whatever that
Yes, and I will get that.
whatever that
number,
mathematically
Yes, I will get that. number.
multiplies out to, and also rounds, because you you can only go to like 4 specific digits. Mr. Fagione.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. O'Donnell, as much as I appreciate the information you brought here today, I need to digest this. I want to be able to support this. But we had our accountants here, and we have our finance people and our budget people here. My vote today may not be indicative of how it might be on the floor. But yeah, I have to do my research tonight and come up with a strategy for tomorrow. So out of respect, I just want to let you know that I'm going to do my best. It's not tomorrow, coming up in a couple of weeks, on the 13th. So I just need to digest this. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? Mr. Paduk?
Just a comment, if you remember correctly, I think this is what the county executive came in on our meeting and made his suggestion of lowering taxes, $2 million. And there was no having to think overnight about it then. And I think it's a great proposal, and it's a lot less work than I did.
Ms. Benelli?
Could you please clarify what the motion is?
The motion is to take,
Reduce the tax rates by 1.5 million.
right,
1.5
right.
million. Okay.
1.5, and to get from surplus.
From service.
Which is 203.
She'll make sure we get all the correct numbers.
Just for the record, that is the 24 number from the Connor Davies, that's unaudited, we're not even done with 24 yet.
Right.
Just,
Right,
that's their projection.
Betsy?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify for the edification of the committee that if the motion fails today in committee, it cannot be brought back on the floor.
Could be
For a
brought with a
second
different
time.
number though.
It could be brought with a different number, but this number cannot.
That's.
I just want to clarify for the.
Nice, interesting, I wouldn't have known that.
Somebody will bring it up because I'll be on vacation.
All righty, Carrie Ann, roll call.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Fazio,
No.
Ryan,
Yes.
Luhan,
Aye.
Cheney,
No.
Skinovich,
Yes.
Benton.
Yes.
Thank you.
I quit.
Right, you got a smile.
Okay. Good job. All right, let's see, I think the desk is clear at this point.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn is in order. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carry. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Observers?